The man everyone praises, Elena, first fell in love with Adrian Vale in a room full of people, although he was not, at that moment, trying to be loved. It was a Tuesday lecture at the university, one of those public talks that pulled in students with free cookies and professors with folded arms. Adrian had been invited to speak about decision-making under stress, a topic that sounded clinical until he began talking like a man describing weather, something ordinary and catastrophic at once. He did not pace. He did not perform. He stood with his hands resting lightly on the podium, as if it were a kitchen counter, and he asked the audience a question that made Elena feel like a door had opened inside her. "When you think you're choosing freely," he said, "how much of that choice is already made for you by your need to be safe?" He didn't say it accusingly. He said it like a shared curiosity. People leaned forward. A girl in the front row stopped chewing. Elena didn't even know his name that day. She only knew that he spoke in a way that made human weakness sound less like failure and more like design. Afterwards, when the room emptied, she found herself standing near the refreshments, pretending to read a flyer, waiting for him to be alone. He was pouring coffee into a paper cup. Alone is a generous word. There were still people orbiting him in conversation, but he had that calm gravity that made you feel you could approach without being a nuisance. "Excuse me," she said, and surprised herself by smiling. "You made panic sound. Almost innocent." He turned toward her fully, not half-body the way busy men do. That small movement, complete attention, felt like an act of respect. She noticed his face before his reputation, dark hair slightly too long for campus professionalism, an attentive crease between his brows, a left cheek dimple that arrived unexpectedly when he smiled. "I'm glad it sounded that way," he said. "Panic is a body trying to love you. Just not very skillfully." She laughed too hard. "That's a nice way to put it. It's the only accurate way I know." She introduced herself. He repeated her name once, softly, as if putting it in a safe place. Later, she would learn that he did that with everyone, repeated a name as though it mattered. People remembered when someone treated their name like a gift. They dated carefully at first, the way you do when you're past 25 and don't want to ruin your own life again. Adrian took her to ordinary places and made them feel curated. A ramen shop where he asked the cook about broth for 10 minutes and paid in exact change. A used bookstore where he found a first edition of her favorite poet, as if by accident. Long walks along the seawall where he listened more than he spoke. What broke her defenses wasn't romance. It was how he handled small cruelties of the world. A woman once snapped at a barista in front of them. The barista blinked with that hollow politeness of someone who has learned not to fight for their dignity at 8 in the morning. Adrian waited until the woman left, then leaned toward the counter. "You didn't deserve that," he said quietly. "Would you like me to write your manager a compliment?" The barista stared, confused. Sure." Adrian did it right there on his phone, typing with the concentration of a man entering a medical dosage. When they left, Elena asked him why he did that. "Because people forget service workers are people," he said. "If I can fix a fraction of that, why wouldn't I?" He said fix like he believed the world was fixable, or at least worth trying on. That belief was part of his brilliance, and part of his danger, although Elena would not name the danger for years. When they married, it felt less like a turning point and more like a natural continuation of a story already written. The wedding was small, held on the beach behind her aunt's house. He cried during her vows, not with theatrical tears, but with a quiet, steady leak that made guests look away out of respect. He didn't promise to always make her happy. He promised to see her truth even when it was inconvenient. "I will love all the ways you change," he said. "Even the ways that scare me." Elena's mother was a practical romantic. She had watched Elena bring home men who treated love like a hobby and men who treated it like an entitlement. After the wedding, her mother took Elena by the hands and said something that stuck like a prickle in her chest. "You found a brilliant husband," she said. "Hold him with both hands." Brilliant. Everyone used that word for Adrian. His students called him brilliant because he made the most difficult theories feel like stories. The dean called him brilliant because grants became him. Their friends called him brilliant because he remembered birthdays without reminders, because he brought soup to sick neighbors, because he never once spoke down to anyone in the room. She called him brilliant because he saw patterns she couldn't. Elena was a high school literature teacher with a private appetite for messy feelings. She loved poetry because it was the only honest thing she knew. Adrian loved brains because he thought they were poems you could measure. Between them, they built a marriage that looked, from the outside, like a demonstration of balance. They lived in a 2-bedroom condo on the 7th floor overlooking the water. The mornings smelled of black coffee and Adrian's toast burned on one side because he always got distracted reading articles at the counter. Elena teased him for it. He kissed her temple and said, "One day the toast will be perfect, and then what will you mock?" "Your socks," she said. "Your unstoppable collection of tragic socks." He wore mismatched socks with serene ownership. They weren't dramatic people. Their love was more like weather than fireworks. She'd come home exhausted from teaching, face tender from smiling all day, and he'd wordlessly hand her dinner, something healthy, always, because Adrian treated their bodies as future thank you notes. Then he'd ask her about her students with sincere curiosity, like their teenage heartbreaks were data for a compassionate universe. If he was strange, it was in that way gifted people can be strange. Too focused, too present, too good at thinking ahead. And yet, there were moments that didn't fit the shape of him. A small pause when she asked a question, as if he needed to fetch the right Adrian to answer it. A look on his face sometimes, when he thought she wasn't watching, like he was calculating angles in an invisible room. A habit of leaving his phone face down and on silent, even at home. Not because he was hiding things, she did not suspect that then, but because he seemed guarded. Elena never said it out loud. She didn't want to be one of those wives who made suspicion into a sport. Besides, Adrian was steady. Steady men don't fracture. They don't have secret lives. They don't accidentally drift into moral murk. If she had been writing a novel, she would have foreshadowed what came later. But real life doesn't foreshadow politely. It lays a detail in your path and waits to see if you step on it. The detail arrived on a Friday night in early spring. Adrian was receiving a city award, one of those civic honors given to rising leaders of innovation. Elena had bought a dress that made her feel like an older, sharper version of herself. Adrian wore a charcoal suit and the silver cufflinks Elena had given him last Christmas, the ones engraved with a tiny line of Neruda, "I want to do with you what spring does with the cherry trees." He'd blushed when he opened the box. At the gala, people kept stopping them. "Oh my God, Adrian Vale. I'm a huge fan of your empathy work. Professor Vale, your last paper changed how I think about trauma." And this must be Elena, the famous wife. Adrian always corrected gently. "Not famous. Just excellent." He said it lightly, but there was a weight in it. The kind of weight a compliment has when it's a truth the speaker is quietly committed to. Elena smiled till her cheeks hurt. When Adrian went on stage to accept the award, he didn't brag about his lab or citations. He thanked a nurse who had once calmed him in a hospital lobby. He thanked his students for keeping the questions alive. He thanked Elena. "My wife," he said, "is the person who reminds me that a theory about love is not the same thing as love. She is my anchor in the world of real people." People clapped hard. A few sighed. The host wiped a theatrical tear. Elena felt proud and vaguely embarrassed at how lucky her life was. Afterward, the room broke into mingling and champagne. Adrian was pulled into a cluster of colleagues. Elena stood near a table of fruit she didn't want and searched for notions of normal in the crowd. That's when she saw the woman. Mid-30s, maybe older. Off-white dress, plain jewelry, posture like she had learned to be invisible but was tired of it. She wasn't mingling. She was scanning. Elena recognized that scan. It wasn't searching for a friend. It was searching for a person you already knew was there. The woman's eyes landed on Adrian. Something passed over her face so fast Elena almost missed it. A flare of shock, pain, and a kind of hard resolve, like someone deciding not to collapse. Then Adrian turned slightly as if feeling a shift in the air. He froze. Not fully. Not in a way anyone but someone who loved him would notice. But Elena knew his body like a language. She could read that half-second stiffening in his shoulders. The way his wrist went subtly still around his glass. The way his expression went blank, as if his awareness had stepped out to a quiet hallway. The woman started toward him. Adrian's eyes fixed on her, and for the first time that night, he looked like a man who didn't know what to do. Elena moved before thinking. She slipped between two people and reached Adrian's side just as the woman arrived. Up close, Elena saw the woman's hands trembling slightly. "Adrian," the woman said. It wasn't a greeting. It was a claim. Adrian blinked once, slow. "Hello." That was all. The word had no warmth. It held no context. The woman stared at him. "It's me." Elena felt the atmosphere tighten around them, like a room noticing a dropped glass. Adrian's mouth parted faintly. He looked at her the way he looked at hard questions, with a gentleness that couldn't hide concentration. "I'm sorry," he said. "Have we met?" The woman's face drained of color. For a second, Elena thought she might slap him, or cry, or collapse. Instead, she made a tiny, controlled inhale. Her eyes flicked to Elena, registering her presence for the first time. "Oh," she said softly. "Right." She gave a brittle smile that didn't reach anywhere. "I must be mistaken," she said, and turned away. Adrian didn't stop her. He watched her go with a look Elena couldn't name. Not confusion exactly. Not guilt. Something quieter and worse, like a file he thought was deleted had reopened. Elena waited until the woman disappeared into the crowd. Then she said, very gently, "Do you know her?" Adrian's shoulders sank as if released from a held breath. He turned to her with practiced calm. "I don't think so," he said. The answer was too smooth. Too immediate. Like a door that was already shut. Elena searched his eyes. She found steadiness there, but also distance, as if he'd moved something behind the curtain. "You looked like you did," she said. He smiled a little. "I'm sorry. I probably just got startled. I'm tired." He kissed her cheek, soft and familiar. "I'm fine," he said. "Let's go home soon, okay?" She nodded, because that's what wives do when husbands smile and say they're fine. They said their goodbyes. They drove home along the coast with the windows slightly cracked for air. Adrian hummed under his breath to some tune she didn't recognize. At home, he loosened his tie and hung it neatly on a chair. Elena took off her heels by the couch. Everything felt ordinary again, which made the moment at the gala feel like a misread line. But when she went into the bathroom to wipe off her lipstick, she caught her reflection and noticed something austere in her own face, a kind of alertness. She returned to the living room. Adrian was in the kitchen rinsing 2 champagne flutes. "Elena," he called. "Want tea?" "In a minute." He set the glasses in the drying rack. His back was turned. She saw, on the counter, his phone face down. She didn't touch it. She wasn't that person. But she looked at him, and she remembered the woman's eyes. "It's me," the woman had said. And Adrian, a brilliant husband, had answered like a stranger. Elena didn't know yet that the rest of her life hinged on that half-second freeze. She only knew something had stepped slightly out of alignment, like a painting tilted on a wall you pass every day. You don't notice it at first. Then you do, and you can't stop seeing it. "Adrian," she said. He looked over. "Yeah." "Nothing," she lied. "Just, I'm proud of you." His smile softened in a way that felt real. "I'm proud of us," he said. He walked to her, put both hands on her shoulders, kissed her forehead. And if she had trusted only that moment, she would have been safe in it forever. But love isn't only made of moments. It's also made of the spaces between them. That night, Elena woke around 3 in the morning to find Adrian sitting up in bed, awake, eyes open to the dark. "Hey," she whispered. "What's wrong?" He turned to her slowly, like a man surfacing. "Nothing," he said. She nodded. "Bad dream." He hesitated a fraction too long. "Yeah," he said. "Something like that." He lay back down. Within minutes, his breathing turned deep and even. Elena stared at the ceiling. In the morning, he would kiss her and make toast and ask about her students, and the day would run like a well-tuned clock. But in the dark, Elena listened to the quiet precision of his sleep. And for the first time since she met him, She wondered if there were parts of Adrian Vale that even she wasn't allowed to know.